So welcome again, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Ophea's new H&PE Secondary Resources of this year's speaker series. Today we'll be hearing from Joann Walsh, our secondary curriculum consultant here at Ophea, who will be sharing some information on our new H&PE Secondary Resources. So the purpose of the webinar today is to provide you with an overview of Ophea's new H&PE Secondary Resources, which were developed to support quality implementation of the 2015 H&PE Curriculum for grades 9 to 12 in your school board or your school that you work with. So my name is Stefan. I'm a project coordinator here at Ophea, and I will be today's moderator for the webinar. And we're very happy to have Joann Walsh, Ophea's curriculum consultant, joining us today to speak in depth to Ophea's new H&PE Secondary Resources. So the 2015 H&PE curriculum is based on the vision that the knowledge and skills acquired by students in the program will benefit them for the rest of their lives. This aligns well with Ophea's vision that all children and youth enjoy the lifelong benefits of healthy, active living. So let's start, I'm just going to ask Joann a quick question here. So what do you think is, what's one thing that really stood out to you in the 2015 secondary H&PE curriculum, and why?
Thank you, Stefan. I'm really happy to be here to support our implementation of this wonderful curriculum. And I think the vision and goals is something that really helps to guide us in what we do. And things that have really stood out for me was the whole concept and the shift in terms of the way we deliver health and physical education, so that we're really looking at physical literacy and health literacy, which are really complex but rich learning for our students. So when we're thinking about helping our students develop their physical and health literacy, it's so important that we're thinking about not just about today, but tomorrow and across our students' lifespan. And so as teachers, I think this curriculum really supports us in terms of what that looks like and what does physical literacy really mean, what does health literacy really mean. And of course, our 2015 Secondary Health and Physical Education Resources were a starting point to support teachers in understanding that and bringing that or deepening that in their practice.
Yeah, thanks, Joann. So all of Ophea's H&PE resources are grounded in the 5 fundamental principles in H&PE as outlined in the 2015 curriculum. So to increase awareness and understanding of the fundamental principles, Ophea created a series of posters outlining each principle. And you can actually find those posters on our website at teachingtools.ophea.net under the supplements section, and then it's under all about H&PE. So the first principle is health and physical education programs are most effective when they are delivered in healthy schools and when students' learning is supported by school staff, families, and communities. The second one is physical activity is the key vehicle for student learning. Then the third one is physical and emotional safety is a precondition for effective learning in health and physical education. The fourth one is learning in health and physical education is student-centered and skill-based. And the final one is learning in health and physical education is balanced, integrated, and connected to real life. Ophea's strategy drew upon multiple funding sources, including school boards and the Ministry of Education, as well as a number of community partners and stakeholders to develop high-quality resources that will support educators in helping students acquire the physical and health literacy skills needed to thrive in the 21st century and lead a healthy, active life. Throughout all phases of development, Ophea engaged key stakeholders such as educators, public health, subject matter experts, and students to ensure the programs and resources developed reflected the needs of the end user. In addition, all of the content developed has been translated to French and adapted by experts to ensure that it is relevant to Franco-Ontarians. So we would like to recognize and thank all the numerous contributors made by our development partners and stakeholders to this multifaceted endeavor. All right, so I'm going to now pass things over to Joann, who's going to lead us through Ophea's H&PE Secondary Resources on our Teaching Tools website. So here I'm going to share our screen here so that Joann can go through. All right.
Okay, well, hello everyone. Hopefully you can see that you are now looking at Ophea Teaching Tools, and you can see that there are, you can see my mouse active here, and what I'm going to do is walk through the secondary support resources and speak to how they may be used with teachers to support their practice. So the way into Teaching Tools in terms of the secondary resources is through the supplement section, and then as we scroll down, you will see a section about H&PE Secondary Resources here. So we're going to click on that, and now we get to the H&PE Secondary Resources landing stage. So what I want to talk about first is this landing page, but the fact that these resources were developed through myriad consultations with educators and administrators over the past 4 or 5 years through Ophea, who had asked administrators and teachers about what was needed to support effective implementation of this 2015 curriculum. And from all the feedback, we then developed our secondary support resources, and of course we continue to develop resources as the need arises and as additional funding comes in. So we're going to encourage you right now that to continue to connect back to Ophea and Teaching Tools to see what's new, and we'll talk more about that at the end of the webinar. So you can see that on our landing page here, we have across the top the toolbar Healthy Living, Movement Competence, and Implementation Tools, and then down on the right side are the same, and it's just for ease of navigation. You can enter into the resources either way. I'm going to scroll down a little bit because on this landing page, it provides you with an overview of the 6, we call them interconnected yet standalone resources, meaning that an educator may use any of these in its entirety without really needing to access any of the others, but there are links to some that teachers may want to access as well. So being interconnected. So for example, the movement confidence posters might be able to work or do work with the teaching games for understanding sample unit plans, and certainly the assessment and evaluation resources, teachers may access those as well. So they are standalone, but that's why we mean when we say interconnected. And I want to note down at the bottom, to access the resources in French, then you would just click on this link. So these suite of resources were developed specifically from the feedback, and they're to support teachers in making those fundamental shifts that we see in the 2015 curriculum. And those specifically moving from a sports-specific teaching to helping students develop fundamental and transferable movement skills, concepts, principles, and strategies that they can use across their lifespan. It is important to involve our students in sports-specific experiences, but the research demonstrates that when students understand the underpinning of those fundamental and transferable skills, then they can transfer them to a variety of activities throughout their life. And that's one of the essential underpinnings of physical literacy. So one of the examples is about how do we adopt a teaching games for understanding approach to develop that. The other part of these resources supports teachers in terms of health literacy, that no longer do we have a knowledge-based curriculum. We know that our students can access information fairly readily on all of their devices. What we need to teach our students is how to think about that information, to make healthy choices, and to think about how the choices that they make today affect their health across their lifespan. So it is about helping our students make connections to all aspects of their well-being, as well as through a health promotion lens. So that's another part that these resources will support. Focus courses at the secondary level are always a topic of conversation, and specifically, how do we differentiate our instruction to support our learners while we're using the same expectations? So the focus course tools or guide is essentially a resource within a resource. And then we know that assessment is always important, and it drives instruction, so that we have some assessment and evaluation tools that teachers can use, and then supporting teachers at all ages and stages of their teaching in terms of planning and curriculum. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through each of the different sections. So we're going to go on to the Healthy Living page. Each resource has an icon that is specifically there, so we can spot them. So this one, the Healthy Living, is the heart with the arrows around it. You can see down at the bottom the implementation tools we can access up here, but you will see them on the landing pages of both the Healthy Living and the Movement Competence. And that's because these are additional resources that teachers may want to access as they're looking through this guide. All right, so we're going to go back to the Healthy Living. I'm going to open it up, and you can see the landing page. And all of the landing pages, it provides educators with an understanding of what is in the resource and how it would support them. So what it includes and how it supports them in terms of their learning. Right? And then on the navigation bar on the left-hand side of the page, this breaks this resource down into the different parts of it. And notice that all of the resources are downloadable, and so they can be stored. They can be printed off in hard copy, or educators can download them and have access to them on their own devices. Down below that, there are also additional resources that are part of Ophea's overall suite of resources that educators may also connect with in conjunction with their learning or with their work in this strand. So when we take a look at the approaches to healthy living, the different sections, there are 5 sections, and part 1, I'm just going to click on each one. Part 1 here supports teachers in understanding the shifts in terms of delivering healthy living. And so you can see here in terms of why some concepts are really, all of the concepts in healthy living require sensitivity because they're so deeply connected to our students' lives. Through the resource, we also provide teachers with some thinking moments around how would you take this theory and use it in your practice. So there's the theory into practice section here. As we go up, another important part, I'm just going to close this one down, and we're going to go into, that's not what I want to do, but we're going to go to part 2. This supports teachers in terms of creating that safe and inclusive environment. So it's really about knowing the curriculum, but there are strategies here in terms of how can I go about facilitating a community of learners. Specifically information about having students think about the bias they bring to the classroom and teachers' bias and how we talk about that in an open and safe environment. So you can see here, and also suggestions for instruction, strategies that are high-yield strategies that teachers can use in terms of working with their students with healthy living concepts and topics. Part 3 here is also information that's found in our curriculum, but it contextualizes it for teachers within this understanding of a health promotion. So when we take a look at the different strands, and we can see the concepts here, but you can see that we have mental health at the beginning. It's not a topic itself, but it's meant to be interwoven in terms of these different concepts. So as teachers read through this, it helps to provide them with a deeper understanding of what those concepts are in terms of a health promotion approach, as well as integrating mental health into that. I'm going to go into part 4. Part 4, and we've had a lot of rich feedback from teachers using these, and that part 4, these are high-yield teaching and learning strategies that teachers can use to promote students' interpersonal skills, relationship skills, communication skills, as well as their critical and creative thinking skills, so the living skills, when they're thinking about concepts and voicing their perspective, listening to others' perspective, and really reflecting and thinking about what choices they want to make and how those choices affect others. So I'm into one, and it's called Take a Stance, so that you can see how these are structured for teachers. In Take a Stance, it provides a description of what Take a Stance is, so what the educator is doing in terms of the Take a Stance. It provides step-by-step instructions about how an educator will set this up in their classrooms. And then finally, it provides important considerations. So things I want to think about when I can use this strategy, when it would be a good strategy to use, but also times that the strategy may not be the best strategy to select. So that supports educators there. And then finally, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go into the last part, which are sample units. And we call them unit overviews because this unit, I'm going to go into the grade 9, for instance, this unit is not the whole grade 9 healthy living curriculum, but it's a sample of how I would organize a unit to help students make connections across those concepts. So rather than teaching each concept, healthy eating, substance use, abuse, addictions, human development, sexual health, in isolation, how do I combine those in a way that I'm having students think about the choices they're making, the thinking they need, or to use their critical thinking skills to make those choices about all of those pieces in their life at a grade 9 level. So when we go into, and of course teachers are, and we've had a lot of feedback as well on these, teachers are teaching these as they are and finding them very helpful in helping them model their own practice around a more holistic, integrated approach to healthy living and looking at the overall expectations to connect learning. So the way these units are structured is it's information to teachers about how the learning is focused on the overall expectations and helping students make connections to their lives. And then a little bit about the vertical learning approach, which is referenced in our curriculum document. And in this case, what we're doing here is we're helping students make connections between personal safety, substance use, human development, and sexual health. These units have used backward design or a design down approach, a universal approach, where we start with the curriculum expectations. So we provide teachers with that, all of the curriculum expectations that are addressed in the unit, and then structuring some sample learning goals. Teachers could pick and choose from these learning goals, depending on what they're going to take in the instruction, and then some possible big questions that are inquiry-type questions that would drive our students' learning. And these questions go back to the learning goals, which go back to the curriculum expectations. And then as we move down, we've provided an example of what a rich performance task would look like that students would do as a culminating activity to really demonstrate their learning of those learning goals and answer those big questions. And then the chart continues to support teachers in the learning goal and then teaching and learning strategies that would address that learning goal and then opportunities for assessment. I won't scroll through the whole thing because they're quite long, but what we have provided, I'm going to go back one screen, and what we've provided is you can see a sample unit for each of the grades. So teachers can use these to start, and then it gives them experience in terms of teaching in that holistic manner. All right, so I'm going to go back to, now I'm going to go into the second component, and here you can see 3 of the additional resources. And in these resources, this is to support our teachers in terms of physical literacy and how we support our students in developing those transferable fundamental movement skills. You'll notice that it's called Movement Competence and Active Living. And that's because in our new 2015 curriculum, we want our students to develop their personal fitness, but also through participation in a variety of physical activities, so that being physically fit supports us in staying in the game, so to speak, our durability and our ability to stay active across our lifespan. So we want our students to understand the importance of why being physically fit is important, not just in terms of their own health indicators, but also in terms of that joy and that participation across their lifespan, as well as the connections to mental health. So we've intentionally integrated that here. And in the movement competence units, each one has a lesson where students are making connections to active living. So I'm going to start with the movement competence poster. So I'm going to click on here. You can see the landing page looks very much like the healthy living page. And you can see that the home page describes to teachers what is in this part of the resource and how they might use them. Down the side, teachers can access the posters here, or they can access them through here. And I want to draw your attention to that these can also be downloaded and saved on their personal devices and the varying sizes that they can download. And essentially, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into there are the 10 posters. There are 4 posters that we can see. I'm just going to scroll up here. So there are 5 posters that are supporting our students in terms of strategies, and you can see that they're based on the Teaching Games for Understanding approach. So what are common game sport strategies that I would use for net wall games, striking fielding games, target games, and territory games, and of course, what fundamental movement concepts and skills do I use when I'm involved in individual activities. Down below those, we have 5 posters that help our students specifically with the skills, and these locomotion and traveling skills combining, receiving, retaining, sending, and stability skills are all skills that are referenced in our curriculum document. Those are skills we are helping our students. So I'm going to open up. I'm going to go to let's say our receiving skills poster. So when we go to the poster, you can see that we're talking about success criteria, and teachers can use these to help have a common understanding of what success looks like when I'm trying to receive an object. And we, of course, have referenced here in terms of the skills itself, the phases of movement that our students want to think about, and in terms of combining these skills with their manipulation and locomotion skills, which are the expectations that students are now at a stage of combining these skills. And then how they apply concepts. In the past, we really focused on skills, and now we're trying to get our students to understand concepts in terms of health and physical education and the principles that I need to use to send an object or receive an object effectively. I want to point out that there are some sample questions here that really bring to life the living skills that are integrated, where we want students to think about their performance, and so that's having them use their critical and creative thinking skills around how they are effectively receiving an object and improving performance. This brings in the inquiry approach, whereas teachers, we take a questioning stance to have our students think about how they might improve their performance by those questions. These are certainly not the complete information that students may need, but it helps guide the learning for teachers and students. Teachers can use these to select criteria for a day, have students select the criteria, a goal for the day, and what their next steps are. Students can use these as self-assessment or as peer assessment. And there again, you can see that you can download the posters in a variety of sizes. All right. I'm going to now look at we're going to go to the territory games posters, and you can see they're set up exactly the same way in terms of success criteria, but this time we're focusing on strategies, so transferable offensive and defensive strategies that I might use in any territory game, how the transition skills that are important, as well as, again, thinking about performance and improving performance, making direct connections to the living skills and direct connections to a questioning stance. And this is what teachers have asked us, is how do I focus on fundamental transferable skills, and how do I integrate the living skills? So these posters are meant to support both teachers and students in understanding what success looks like and moving purposely towards that success. So these are the fundamental movement competence posters. Going back I'm going to go back again into the movement competence and active living, and this time I'm going to just skip over focus courses for a minute, and this time I'm going to go into the sample units. So this was another thing that we had heard from teachers is to help me to understand how I move from a sports-specific focus to an integrated approach in terms of teaching games for understanding. So in this case, you can see here, there's some more information for teachers about these units. They can choose to go there or not. And then you can see there's actually 5 sample units, because we know that these are the 4 that are the teaching games for understanding categories, but we also have to remember that involving our students in individual pursuits is equally important, so that students find their joy and their passion and their bliss in terms of participation. And that's really important part of physical literacy, is that students learn and can reflect on how they like to be physically active and what motivates them to be physically active. You can see here, here's where the interconnectedness is, where we remind teachers that the movement competence posters are valuable to use in conjunction with these. Not necessarily have to, but it would be something they might think about using. I'm going to go into the net wall on this one. So when I open up the net wall, here's what a teacher would see. You can see that a teacher can download the unit here from this button. Again, using a backward design approach, we provide teachers with, we're looking at the curriculum expectations. These are all the expectations, and one might say, that's a lot of expectations for a unit. But this is to get teachers and all of us to understand that physical literacy is about a big, big, big component. All of these expectations, and really what I'm hovering over here, these are actually the living skills, where we've integrated those as well, so that you can see that physical literacy is about all of these together, and it's a holistic integrated approach. From the curriculum expectations, we've written learning goals. Certainly we might not use all of these learning goals in the unit, but again, it's a menu of choices for teachers to select which ones they would focus on, and then the expectations are the codes and brackets to support teachers in saying this learning goal is supporting students developing these or achieving or meeting these expectations. From the learning goals, we've designed a series of success criteria. Again, teachers can pick and pull from there. And from there, a series of guiding questions, which are the big questions that we want our students to think about their performance. Again, using design down, just like we did in the Healthy Living units, we have provided a suggested what a culminating activity might look like, as well as an assessment tool. And you'll notice that there's a link here for a rating scale. I'm not going to click on it now because I'll come back to that, and a rubric here. If I clicked on those, that would take me to our assessment and evaluation tools, where a blank rating scale and a blank rubric would come up that teachers could populate, and I'll speak to those in a little bit. We provide an opportunity. Here's an activity that teachers might use before instruction to assess where their students are at, so that they know, again, where they begin their instruction to drive their instruction. This is called Switcheroo. If I clicked on this, this would take us to Play Sport, which is an Ophea resource as well, and it provides teachers with an explanation of what Switcheroo is, how to set up the gym, the equipment required, and there's a graphic that shows what it would actually look like. And then again, you can see the reference to the assessment tool. There is a checklist that's there. So there's 3 different assessment tools that teachers can access in this suite of resources. And again, I'll show you what those look like when we go into that part of it. As we move down, you can see that we have instructional periods, and this is an important thing, I think, as leaders, for those of you on the call to understand. These are not 5 classes, 6 classes, 7 classes. The word period was meant intentionally to describe a period of learning. This potentially could take place, period 1 could potentially take place over a period of 2 or 3 days in the gymnasium, depending on where the students are, or depending on the time that we have for our learning. And we also know, too, as a sidebar, that because if your board has bought into the elementary subscription, elementary teachers will be able to access these, and some of these will also support them. And we have had elementary teachers who have been navigating our site asking if they can use them. If it grows their practice and supports them, absolutely, no question. So I'm going to go into period 1. And you can see it drops down, and it's exactly like the overview of the unit. Now we have learning goals, success criteria, and guiding questions that are specific to the learning in this period. Teachers can select which one or two they would like to work on in here in terms of when they actually use these in their classes, but this is the menu of choices to support teachers to differentiate their learning depending on where their students are and the fundamental age of their and developmental level of their students. And now each period is designed using effective design, which we know is a minds-on to activate our students' curiosity and what they know and what they would like to know more about. And you can see that where students would reflect and share on what they did to successfully maintain a rally and switcheroo, and now we can use that to start having them think about what they want to do in this one. Notice that we're continuing to play switcheroo for a bit. Then we're going to go to something called one bounce, which again is a play sport, and then we're going to play a second round of one bounce. And in the consolidation, we provide examples of strategies that might be used, something called a walk and talk strategy, where we describe what that is for students to reflect on their learning, and the opportunity for teacher assessment, an anecdotal recording chart, and of course that'll take them into the tool. All of these are designed, and on the final day, the culminating task is structured, so we have a minds on what the task would be and the opportunity for assessment. So those are our units. I'm going to just kick myself out of here and to go back, and as you can see, striking, fielding, target, territory, they are all structured the same way. And you can see that the movement competence posters lend themselves nicely to that. I'm going to go back into the movement competence, and I'm going to focus now on the focus course planning guide. And for those of you who are writing furiously right now and trying to capture this, I want to reiterate that we are recording this, and the webinar will be available, including my voice, and so that teachers are able to go in and listen to the webinar and hear this and pause the webinar and navigate and come back into it. So I want to assure you that I know you're receiving a lot of information right now, but you'll certainly be able to go back, navigate through it, and use this with your teachers to think about this further, or for our public health partners on the line, to use this with your colleagues to deepen their understanding of the health physical education curriculum and how your very important support is needed in terms of these fundamental shifts. So I'm going to go into the focus course planning guide, and for secondary teachers, focus courses are additional courses that may be offered from grade 9 to 12 that have a specific focus. So an example of individual activities and a fitness focus, and outdoor activities, which we often know as outdoor education, aquatics, rhythm and dance. Those are the kinds of things that are focus courses, and again, it's about helping our students learn about what will keep them physically active and engaged and healthy for a lifetime. Because focus courses use the same expectations as the regular Hale courses, it's always a challenge for teachers to determine how they can offer learning with those expectations, but with a variety of different activities, so that if students take students can take a grade 10 Healthy Active Living course, and then they can take a grade 10 individual and fitness activities course, or grade 11 they can take an individual fitness activities and an outdoor activity. So how is their learning different? So all landing pages are structured the same way. And I'm going to scroll through. What this page does is support teachers in understanding what's in each section, and what it includes. So a teacher can skim and scan through this to see what they might be able to use and what they're not necessarily interested in looking at this point in their practice. And once again, all of these are downloadable individually. I'm going to go into the purpose of a focus course, and we can see the navigation button. I can download each section independently. And so when we take a look at the purpose of focus courses, oftentimes teachers are saying, what does a focus course should be, what shouldn't it be, and how do I design a focus course? So this helps teachers understand the purpose of it, Again, this is the vision of the health and physical education curriculum. Is still exceptionally important in focus courses because this may be the only course students take. So those fundamental principles and this vision is very important for students to acquire these skills, but through a focus course. The purpose of a focus course is about engaging more students and catching students who are not engaged in a regular HALE course. And I will point out here that the intent of focus courses, this is from our policy document, that it's not meant to be a single sport course, that it's meant to be a course that has a menu from potentially large group games, such as a hockey course, a basketball course, are actually large group game courses. So how do we take those and help our students understand strategies that are transferable across a lifetime in terms of territory games? And how do they develop fitness for those kinds of things? And then the menu of choices around why to increase the rate of participation of students who are currently not engaged, and the type of focus courses and how do I design my focus course. I'm going to go back up to the top. When we think about why we want to offer a focus course, teachers can think about considerations for offering a focus course and how they go about that. How do I plan my focus course? I'm going to go into here for a little minute, and here's the advocacy. How do I advocate for getting a focus course in my school that would encourage my students to be physically active who are not engaged in HALE? So it's a sample checklist teachers can use, and then thinking about focus courses, what are some of the things they want to think about, and then planning for it, what do I need to consider when I'm planning for it. So when a teacher uses this resource, they can plan an effective focus course pretty much with this suite of resources. I want to talk about Section 5 and 6 holistically. One of the issues is that teachers want to know, if I have to use the same expectations, how do I differentiate that? So mapping, curriculum mapping, is a process that's used to use the expectations but select the activities that are in the examples based on their focus. So a curriculum map helps teachers and departments work through that so they can select activities that work for the focus course. Section 5 is when I have a focus course that's offered at the same level, and Section 6 is when I'm offering an outdoor activities course in grade 10, grade 11, grade 12. How do I differentiate that? So I'm going to just click on Section 5. The first part explains, you can see it's downloadable. It explains what a curriculum map is, what I do before I map, while I'm mapping, and as part of the process. And these are videos that teachers can go in and look at to help think about what their practice might look at. You can see here's the integrated model, so they might want to take a look at Section 2 while they're doing this, but here's an example. So it explains about how you create a matrix, how you use the examples from the curriculum expectations, and now we provide them here with an active living example. I want to note here that this may seem a duplication where we start with the expectations, then we do a step-by-step process, then we have it written out, and now we have a chart below. So we've done this intentionally, one, for accessibility. All of our resources are AODA compliant, which is very important for all our teachers, and they are used with a screen reader if needed without a lot of confusion on the reader's part. And so having it written here in plain text certainly supports teachers who need that from that perspective, but then it also supports, this is the actual matrix chart that a department would design, and you can see when we're looking at cycling, which is in the grade 11 curriculum expectation, how would I use cycling in my HALE course as fitness, in my outdoor, PAI, my individual activities, and of course outdoor education. I'm not necessarily, I could go cycling, no, this is outdoor, these are switched. I could go cycling, but I might think about snowshoeing here as an example where up here I'm looking at sledge hockey, snowshoeing, continuously moving through a game. What would that look like? So one of the curriculum expectations is about this, and the other curriculum expectation is about that. This would require some good time a fairly lengthy amount of time sitting with teachers and department members to see how this would work, but having worked with teachers provincially on this already, it's a very, very valuable exercise that teachers can use in terms of focus courses. I'm going to go to section 7 here. This is important because, again, the healthy living curriculum expectations are the same. So how do I differentiate those? And we are really using inquiry-based learning in healthy living now. And so it's important that teachers adopt an inquiry-based learning for health and physical education. But to help teachers get started down below, we have created a series of inquiry questions that teachers can use to begin and to drive the learning in their healthy living classes. Ophea does have an inquiry-based learning workshop that certainly would include this for teachers at a secondary level to help them with how do I use inquiry-based learning and how do I begin my instruction with these kinds of inquiry questions. So I would encourage you to have your teachers explore those and how they might use those in their healthy living. Okay, and the last part of this tool is these are for leaders specifically, where leaders who are working with teachers, we have a ready-to-use PowerPoint with teachers to help them use all of these tools in the focus course planning guide, as well as the actual guide for the facilitator. These are downloadable and they're customizable. They're not PDF protected, so that you can actually pick and pull and change what you need to suit the need of your teachers. But it supports all of this work where you want to bring this learning to your teachers. And of course, that's also available through our fee-for-service workshops if you would like an Ophea consultant to come and work with your teachers on focus courses. All right, so I'm going to come out of there, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into the last suite of resources, which are the implementation tools, which I've referred to. I'm going to go to the assessment and evaluation tools, and there's no drop-down menu here because they are all on this page. And again, it provides teachers with what they are and how to use them, and I'm going to show you now, if a teacher goes into an anecdotal recording chart, teachers can download these, put them on their devices, and they can do their recording digitally. So the expectations, you can see that I can actually populate the chart. I can populate it with my learning goals, with my success criteria. Now I have my students' names in here, and now I can very quickly describe my observations, whether I'm doing it on my iPad as students are active, if I can, if safety would allow me to do that. If not, I can do that very quickly at the end of my class. Similarly, I can go in, I can use a checklist, and it operates exactly the same way, where I can populate these fields, anything that's blue here. Now I can put a name in here, and I can say either got it, and a check mark comes up, or still working on it. So teachers can use those. So those are the ready-to-use, writable tools. When teachers download these, they always get a copy. So they always have a master copy, and then when they save the master copy populated, the populated one saves, but they always have a master copy to go back to. So you can see we have 6 teacher resources, and we have student resources. So I'm going to go into an example here where we can use a gallery walk. I can have my topic, my question that students are looking at, and students can actually write in here using their own devices. So if they're walking around and there's a question, issue, or image, and I want them to respond to it, they can respond as a group or individually, the next one, and the next one, and so on. And then they can upload this to our Google Classroom, and I can go in and I can use it to gather evidence of my students' prior knowledge or my students' learning or where I need to go next in my instructional move. So there's 12 of these, and they all work exactly the same way. The last tool that I'm going to talk about before we go to answer some of your questions is an effective planning guide. And this is to support all teachers. This will continue to be populated. And these are things that teachers have been talking about in terms of what do I need to think about in terms of long-range planning. When I adapt my practice into a TGFU approach and integrating healthy living rather than having disparate units of weeks at a time when I take my students out of the gym. What's effective unit design planning now around TGFU? And you can see reference sample units. And then how do I support my students in developing those critical physical literacy skills? And you can see connections to the movement competence posters. So this is very much a theoretical construct for teachers. I'm going to point out a practical tool here, which teachers are already using. We've had great feedback. Here's an example of a long-range plan that's populated for teachers to show how you might set up that recursive learning in terms of TGFU, as well as how you might integrate physical fitness and healthy living. You can see here where we have healthy living Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and net wall Thursday, Friday. So I don't have my students out of the gym for a week or two at a time. Of course, sometimes we know that can't happen depending on space availability, but it's helping think about shifting that. And then this one is a long-range plan. Like the A&E tools, it's fillable. So teachers can use these to begin their planning through the year, but also adapt, make notes, modify their planning as they go. And then there will be more coming in this area, I will tell you that. So I encourage you to continue to connect back to all of these and to have your teachers connect back. So I know that was a really, really quick and a lot of information at you, but we wanted to give you an opportunity of the wealth of resources that are now available for secondary educators. The feedback has been wonderful, and then also to be able to understand how teachers can use these to begin shifting their practice or to continue to grow their practice based on the pedagogy of 2015 Secondary Health and Physical Education Curriculum. Right now I'm going to turn it back to Stefan, and we're going to go back out of the screen share, and we're going to take a look. Karen, you're very welcome. And yes, they are no longer in PDF, so that we want them to be as customizable and usable for teachers, because of course we know across the province that there are different needs for teachers, and we're trying to meet a variety of needs for teachers across the province. Sports specific, can you write that out for us? I can tell you that sports specific is about, my unit 1 is going to be football because I have the field, and then unit 2 I have volleyball, unit 3 I have basketball. So sports specific meaning that I focus on one particular sport only versus having a unit of activity that would have territory type games. So football is a territory game where I'm either trying to move into someone's space or to protect my goal, etc. So those are the things, and of course our curriculum document provides more understanding about what that means. So I'm not sure if that answered your question, but if I haven't, then you can get to me at joann@ophea.org, and I can certainly call you or answer your question that way. When will it be available for us to share?
Yeah, I'm not actually sure yet. We're probably looking at next week. This week, we don't have too much time left to put it together, so I'm thinking next week, but we'll definitely make you guys aware of when and where it will be available.
Karen, how about if we touch base in terms of joann@ophea.org, and if I haven't clarified it for you, then I'd certainly pick up the phone and we can have a conversation. That would be great. Okay.
All right, so thanks a lot, Joann, for the walkthrough of our H&PE Secondary Resources. So if your school board or your organization has purchased access, we encourage you to take a few minutes after the webinar to go look around the site, identify which resources may be useful to you in your work. But if your board has not subscribed, but you're interested in learning more about purchasing a subscription, you can email subscribe@ophea.net, and all of your questions will get answered. So subscriptions are available to school boards, health units, faculties of education, and private schools. And if you're not sure if your organization has has purchased access, you can email curriculum@ophea.net. And we'll be able to let you know whether you have access or not. So in addition to our H&PE Secondary Resources, Ophea has other resources and services available that can support the implementation and quality of the H&PE Secondary Curriculum in your school boards. So one of them is our Ophea Conference. So our annual Ophea Conference is a great opportunity to network with other educators and attend interactive and innovative workshops and seminars on content, teaching strategies, and sorry, I can never pronounce this name properly, but pedagogical principles. Thank you very much, Joann.
No problem.
So this year's Ophea Conference is going to be held October 13th and 14th at the Scotiabank Convention Center in Niagara Falls. So you can stay tuned for more information on the conference and how to register. You can get more information as well at conference, as you can see on the screen at the URL conference.ophea.net. So Ophea also offers some fee-for-service workshops, as Joann mentioned during the presentation. So a lot of the fee-for-service workshops are relevant to H&PE Secondary. Currently, as you see, we have 4 here indicated on the screen. So you got one for secondary H&PE. That one is not actually quite finished yet, but it will be available starting in April of this year. We also have a fee-for-service workshop on teaching games for understanding, another one on physical activity and mental health, and then one on assessment and evaluation. And then some other resources that can support you in your work. As Joann mentioned as well during the presentation with the sample units, PlaySport is another great website that has a lot of different activities for pretty much all grade levels. You also have the inquiry guide, which you can, all these things we can find, as you can see on the screen, on teachingtools.ophea.net. PlaySport is under the section of activities, and the inquiry-based learning guide is found under the supplements section. Also, and then you can communicate with us, or Ophea Communications, sorry. We have monthly newsletter, eConnection. You can join us on Facebook Live and our Ophea blog as well. Here are a few helpful links. So these can help you in accessing our resources and get a hold of us as well. So essentially you have Ophea, our general website, ophea.net, and then you have Teaching Tools, which is where we keep, or where we house most of our resources. And also All About H&PE, that's another resource, as Joann mentioned during the webinar. All About H&PE consists of various videos and posters about the fundamental principles, as we talked about at the beginning. And then finally, you can get some updates on our H&PE support strategy at ophea.net/H&PE supports. So thank you very much for your participation. We still have some time left. If you want to, we'll open the lines up now for questions. And also, I wanted to add, so for your feedback, as you can see, we're asking if you can provide us feedback on the webinar. That'd be great. Anytime we can improve on what we do is a great opportunity. So I'm going to put the link as well, just in case it doesn't work. On the screen, I'm going to put it in the chat box.
Hi, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. So we have a couple of minutes left. So if you have any questions, still burning questions, then feel free to ask them now.
We'll stay on the line for a little bit, but if they, if you don't stay on the line, we just wanted to thank you very much for staying with us today. and we'll just stick around a little bit to answer any other questions you may have.